Fart Jokes, Pie and Celeste is the 12th episode of the 7th season of Two and a Half Men. This is directed by James Widdoes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the events of the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And it's a pretty decent episode. I think the pacing is really great. There are a lot of very quick scenes in this, and that's not to say it needs to have quick scenes to be enjoyable, but I feel like this worked really well. It starts off with Charlie offering to call Chelsea a cab for the airport. She then deletes a secret sex tape. I have to say, if I found out somebody recorded me without my knowledge, I would be a lot less calm than Chelsea was. And then Alan comes home from what he describes as the worst date of his life. And then Chelsea is really kind. She offers to talk with him about it. She's really nice, and I don't understand why I don't like her. It's not so much that I dislike the character, it's that I don't care about her. I've mentioned this before. I won't go on about it, but she's always so nice and calm and rational, and I don't like her. Alan is desperate for human contact, so he ends up going out with Herb. Jake is then annoyed with Charlie, as Charlie is the reason he's no longer with Celeste. And those are the main parts of the narrative. Herb and Alan, Jake, and the absence of Celeste. And we get to see Herb and Alan at the food court. Really nice environment, works really well. And it's quite sweet. Alan says, most people don't get me. And Herb says, well, that's their loss. And I genuinely think Herb meant it. I don't think he was just being kind. I think Herb likes Alan, but of course there's a problem, and that problem is Judith. Judith happens to phone Herb, and she's not exactly thrilled about the situation. I also love the fact, it's such a subtle thing, but I love the fact that both characters are wearing stripes. Alan has quite thick stripes on, Herb is wearing quite thin stripes, but it's such a small detail, but it kind of gives this bit of unity between them. There are these similarities between them, and I'm not saying wearing stripy clothing is the foundations of a good friendship, but I rather like that decision there. And then we're with Charlie and Jake, and Charlie gives Jake some advice about how to win Celeste back. And then Herb and Alan are making a date to go to the flea market, and they do this little fist bump, and then they hug, and it's really, really sweet. And we are bouncing back and forth between the characters. And as I said, for this episode, I think that works really well for the pacing of the narratives. And then we find out that things didn't go very well with Celeste, so Jake is still practicing the song. And I have to say, it sounds good. I know nothing about music, but I feel like Charlie's advice wasn't great. Yes, he said writing Celeste a song comes across as a bit desperate, but if somebody went to that length to try and win me back, I'm not saying I'd take them back if I were the Celeste in this scenario, but I'd feel like they genuinely wanted me back and that they were genuinely sorry and they put the effort in. So I don't agree with Charlie's advice there, but that's maybe not the first time I've felt that way. Charlie and Jake then have a conversation about pooping cereal, and then we're back with Alan in this rather sweet scene because he's went to pick up Herb to go to the flea market, and Judith said no, which is not really Judith's call to make. And Alan throws a rock up at Herb's window. I don't think I realised the house was on multiple stories before. I could be mistaken, but I feel like up until this point, we've only ever had the sense that it's a ground floor, like a one-floor property. I could be just completely making that up. But he throws the rock up at Herb's window because he just didn't want him to think he'd stood him up, which was so sweet. And the lighting in this scene is fantastic as well. It's a very well-lit scene. And then Herb decides he's going to climb down this plant. I know nothing about plants, but the colour of it is absolutely gorgeous. And as soon as he climbs onto it, it falls backwards. Herb crashes to the ground. Judith appears in the window, wondering what's going on, and Alan runs, leaving poor Herb on the ground, about to get the wrath of Judith. It's a very funny scene. And then we have the three of them at the end of the episode, with Jake missing Celeste, Charlie missing Chelsea, and Alan missing Herb. And then somebody who Jake doesn't really recognise calls him, and Charlie goes to pick up, well, he doesn't go to pick up Chelsea, he goes to call her a cab because she's coming back to the airport. And then there's a knock at the door, and it's Herb in a neck brace, and they don't have much time because Judith thinks he's at the physio, but Alan invites him in, and we have this lovely friendship. And I have to say, it must be great. I mean, I don't think Jake cares at this point in his life, but to see his father and his stepfather getting along so well must be a lovely thing, because obviously that's not ever going to be a guaranteed thing. And I think it's nice that Alan and Herb have a friendship, and I think they are quite a lot alike in a lot of ways. I think they have very similar interests. They may not have the exact same hobbies, but I think their values are quite similar. They obviously have a common ground with their relationships and in some ways their feelings towards Judith as well. And in general, I think Herb and Alan are rather great together. Fart Jokes, Pie and Celeste is a pretty good episode of Two and a Half Men. It's a nice filler episode, and we have some really great pacing, some great scenes, some beautiful lighting, a nice variety of locations, and some nice comedies. Berta was there as well. I didn't mention Berta, but Berta was in it for a little bit and brought us some humour as well. So, all things considered, can't really fault it. Fart Jokes, Pie and Celeste is definitely a really decent episode of Two and a Half Men.